Welcome to Routing for Success, the show where we interview today's top logistics professionals, providing them a platform to share their stories and best practices. I'm your host, Emily Blair.
And I'm your host, Jake Hirsch. Today, we interview Amy Fitch. Amy is a former math teacher turned remote FedEx operator extraordinaire. Amy dives into the top 3 must-haves in your business, owning a FedEx operation 8 hours away from your home, and why chickens running under a truck should not be on your schedule out. You're not going to want to miss this one.
This episode is brought to you by AP Equipment Financing. AP Equipment Financing can bring you the best deals on step vans, panel vans, cutaways, and more, deliver them straight to your facility, and finance them with low monthly installment options. Click the link in the description to this episode or visit apfinancing.com.
Amy, welcome to Routing for
Good
Success.
afternoon.
How are you
well.
today?
Doing very well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to join us. I brought you on today because when we were talking about possibly looking at some rentals for your fleet, you were hands down the most organized and thorough question asker I have ever met. And then when your husband said that you used to be a middle school math teacher, it all made sense. But Amy, how did you get from being a middle school math teacher to running a FedEx business?
I taught middle school math. I taught everything. I taught everything from preschool to high school when I first got out of college, mostly private schools. I actually worked for a while at a private learning disabled school in the Metro Detroit area for a number of years. And that's where I taught middle school math. And then I had kids and I stayed home and I went back to teaching as a substitute teacher once my kids were in school, but I only taught in the middle school. And so, because that's really where I found my passion to be. And I did that until probably 2014 or 15. And then I kind of semi-retired. We built a vacation home in northern Michigan. And when COVID hit, we said, okay, we're just going to go there. And we sold our Metro Detroit home and moved up here. And when COVID was over and it was time for my husband to go back to work in the office, he said, no, thank you. And so we sorted things out from there. And he really is the one that did the due diligence looking into FedEx as a business, FedEx Ground. We had the opportunity to do P&D or line haul. We did a lot of education on both of them just to decide what worked best for us. And we landed on P&D. Now he actually has a full-time job again. So I run FedEx and he dips in and out as needed just to give me some deeper dive guidance on things that I like to look for input from him on. So there you go.
That's awesome, Amy.
Yeah.
So my wife is a teacher, and I see a trend with a lot of FedEx contractors that come from teaching. A lot of them seem to come from teaching or a military background. And I'm curious how the skills that you developed as a teacher in that career translated now into your FedEx career.
Sure, Jake. What I would have to say is communication is key, being a FedEx contractor. And if there's one skill you have to be a good teacher is the ability to communicate. And if you can't do that, you're really going to struggle. And I find that is absolutely the number one best asset when it comes to being a contractor is your ability to communicate with everybody. And I mean everybody. You have to have a good, solid relationship with your terminal manager, your belt manager, your BC, your drivers, your vendors, FedEx corporate, your the Marsh person that you talk to about your dreaded Schedule L, all the way down to Gallagher Bassett when they call you because somebody hit a mailbox. You have to be able to communicate with all of these people. Ford Pro, my new favorite people. I have a whole fleet of Fords, and everybody knows 2021 and 2022 Ford 7.3 liter engines are really horrible. And so We have our favorite Ford Pro person. Shout out to Sharon. So, you just have to be able to communicate with people. And if you can't do that, then you're just going to sit there spinning your wheels, wondering why you can't get anybody to work with you. So, and it is a business of working with people. I don't work for FedEx, and FedEx does not work for me. But the ideal situation is to be able to work with them and all the rest of the people. So there you go. Communication,
I love that.
the long way around.
That's a great that that is an amazing answer, and I thought it was fun when I was on the phone and your husband was in the background. He said that you turn everything into an art, and I can see that about you. It's fun because you're very detail driven, but you're also a great broad strokes manager. So I'd like to transition into talking about how you manage
Mhm.
remotely. So you have a manager on site and you are a few hours
We're
away, is
about
that
8
correct?
hours away, so by car.
Okay.
And, when you live in Northern Michigan, you're about 12 hours away by plane because you go through 3 airports, but, which is why we drive. Yes, we have a very capable manager, and that really is probably your number one must-have in the FedEx Ground business when you are a remote owner, is to have a very capable, hands-on manager. He is available truly 24/7. So anything that comes up, anything that's happening, he is boots on the ground in the terminal, in the area with the drivers. That doesn't mean that Brent and I don't go. We go very regularly to the terminal. We try to make it down there, at least every 4 to 6 weeks. Just because the other thing that I think is really key is knowing your drivers and having them be able to put a face with a name, because I am their first point of contact when they come on board. Then they get turned over to my manager. So I need to meet them, or they don't know who they've been talking to on the phone. They don't know who they've been emailing or texting with. So I like to be there and make sure that I shake their hand and bring them donuts or Chick-fil-A breakfast when I'm in town, which I think they enjoy. So,
Who
but yeah,
wouldn't?
it is key to have somebody there that can manage your fleet, manage your scheduling, interface with the terminal on a day in, day out basis for anything that really doesn't have anything to do with the financial side of the business. So,
That makes a lot of sense. And Amy, how did you find a manager that's willing to be on 24/7 when they're not the owner of that business?
so our manager, it's funny that you ask, he worked for the contractor that we originally bought part of our CSA from. Now, he didn't come to us at that time. He maintained his relationship with his previous contractor because we bought a double carve out when we first started. So there were two contractors selling parts, and we purchased from both of them at the same time those parts that they were shedding. And we started a new CSA at that time. So he worked for them. In the transition, we got to know him because he was part of a team of people that were an integral part of us learning the business. They were incredibly helpful in the very beginning as we, as new owners, we did have a BC in the terminal at the time. He came from the other contractor. And so we had that BC for about a year. And after a year, we just saw we didn't meet completely eye to eye. So we started looking for an opportunity to switch. And through shakeup of other CSAs, the manager we have today became available to us. And actually, another contractor approached us and said, "Hey, I think this guy would be a great fit for you." So it really was, again, it comes down to communication. We had a great communication with all the other contractors in the terminal. They saw some of the struggles we were having, and they literally talked to our manager and said, "How do you feel about going over there? I think they would really benefit from your leadership." We met with him. We already knew him, but he came on board and he's just been our guy ever since. So I think that answered your question.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we did not do the traditional
Yeah,
put an
that
ad
is
out on Indeed, use our recruiter to find one. We just got lucky. We literally got lucky. And that's not always going to happen for everybody. You may have to write up an ad and look for a BC if you need one. We got lucky because we knew people and we work well with the other contractors in the terminal. So our terminal is an incredibly cohesive terminal, and contractors are happy to help one another out constantly. Terminal management is aware that we help one another out, and they work with us to make that work. So it's a really great terminal.
that's amazing. You don't always hear
No,
that. There are definitely terminals where that is not the case. Do you think that is it just lucky that you landed in a cohesive terminal, or is there something specific that maybe the terminal manager does that you as contractors are doing? How do you think that you managed to build this type of relationship within the terminal?
I think Brent and I didn't go in there acting like we knew what we were doing. When you're brand new at this, you can't walk through the door acting like you know what you're doing, because we didn't. We didn't know what we were doing. And everything that we thought we knew, we found out later we didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. You're wrong about what you think you know, all of that. And it all comes with time. But if you are transparent with people and honest and genuine, then I think people are happy to help. They're more than happy to step up and help. So we got a lot of guidance, and in the transition with the contractor that we originally purchased from, we have continued to go back and ask for guidance on things, and they still gladly give it. You can't be grumpy. I don't know what else to say. You can't go into this and be a grumpy person that thinks that you know everything. It's not going to work. Because you do need people's help. And then you have to also be willing to give help too. When somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, my truck broke down and I can't get my load out, and you've got an extra one sitting there." Yeah, man, take it. Good. Go have a spin. That's what you have to do. Because if you try to act like you're a lone wolf in this business in a terminal, it's not. It's going to go very poorly for you. So, and I would put a lot of that on my manager. My BC has a great relationship with other BCs, and they are one another's very first go-to when something is just not going right in the moment. They are on the phone at night doing DRO with one another and asking, "Hey, are these numbers looking correct to you?" They are a team within a team. It's not a written
Hmm.
team, but we know that there's a circle of them that kind of chat about it with one another and figure out, does this look right to you? No, this doesn't look right to me. And then I hear about it every day from my manager. Yeah, I was on the phone with so and so last night, and both of us saw the same pitfalls. So, it made us both look at it from a different perspective. And I'm like, hey, I'm happy you guys were on the phone last night. I was asleep. Yeah. So,
That's awesome, Amy.
mhm.
I think we could end the podcast with "Don't be grumpy." That should be a billboard
Don't be
leaving
grumpy.
every FedEx terminal.
Um,
I love that. So you touched on this a little bit. Now you're 8 hours away.
Yep.
How do you continue to build morale and retain your employees while running the business from 8 hours away? You mentioned bringing donuts in or Chick-fil-A. What else are you doing?
Well, my manager does that too. When I'm not there, he does. I think he is very good at listening to people when they're struggling. You could choose to be a manager that is very hardcore and says, "Hey, today was your work day. Why aren't you here?" Or you could be a manager that will say, "Hey, you know what? I get that you're having a struggle, and communication is key." We hammer that home to our drivers also. Communication is key. They can reach out to me anytime they need anything from an HR standpoint. I can't help them with scheduling. I can help them when they need to change their bank account on paychecks, or they want to know if they have any PTO left, or, they'll come to me. I literally had one ask me one time, "Hey, I think I need a couple days off just to kind of get some things in my life straight. Am I going to get in trouble?" And I said, "No, you're not going to get in trouble because you told me first. You didn't just not come. Tell me which days you need off, and let's talk about it with our manager, and he will schedule around it. It is important to have extra drivers because those things do happen. And the drivers need to know that they can go to the manager or they can come to me and we can sort out your personal needs, your family issues. We're there for you and we're happy to do what we need. My manager, I never count on him driving a route, but he can. He has driven every route in my territory. I have a lead driver. I don't typically count on her driving every day of the week, but she can and has driven every single route in our territory. So having people that are your backup allows your management to be able to be flexible. You don't want them to be. I don't want people calling me 5 days a week and saying, hey, I can't make it. Now I got to go hire another driver. But if you've got the one-offs here and there, hey, I've got a doctor's appointment. I need to be done by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Is there any way? Then my manager can completely take that into consideration when he's routing. So we don't try to publicize it, but he also doesn't have to come down hard on anybody and say, you know what, buddy, you're taking too much time off. You're out. It's always, let's talk about it first. Let's find out what your struggles are. Why are you having a hard time? Why are your days taking you longer? Is there something going on we need to know about? And we work through it. So I really think having that communication and openness and not being angry about every little thing that goes wrong all the time. We do maybe sometimes good cop, bad cop it a little bit. I'm the good cop. He's the bad cop. He has to deal with them every day in the terminal. But if they just want to sit and spill, I'm here. I got AirPods. I'm happy. Let's talk. So, and I think most of this is why Brent and I make sure we go down, every 6 weeks, because if I haven't met somebody, they don't know I'm just a normal Midwest girl. I'm not anything special. I'm just here to make sure you get paid every week. Maybe I get paid too. That's good for all of us. Make sure my trucks are running the best I can and have the resources they need. We've equipped, speaking of resources, this is a big thing. All of our trucks have air conditioning. All of our trucks have iPads. We make sure the charge cords are working. We do the best we can with our fleet to keep it up to date and keep it in good working condition to make their day as comfortable as we possibly can. Those are all pieces and bits. Somebody calls me and says, hey, you know what? I need smaller shorts. I've been working out so hard on this route. I need new shorts. Okay, I'll get you new shorts. You have to balance what can I afford to do and what can't I afford to do. But at the same time, your number one asset is your BC, your number two asset is your driver, and your number three asset is your fleet. So as long as you are treating those three things well, everything else is it's just gravy. So but you got to work on those three things.
I think that's a perfect segue into number 3. Let's talk about your fleet
Okay.
a little bit because I know that you have a lot of rural
Mhm.
territory, and that can be
Mhm.
tricky. That can make things really hard. Can you talk a little bit about how you've managed to keep your fleet up, what your fleet strategy is working with those longer rural
So when we
routes?
first bought into the business, the majority of the fleet that we inherited with the business was the smaller Mercedes Sprinter vans. And they had a significant amount of miles on them. They were in pretty rough shape, but people like driving them. They like driving them for all those stem miles because we do drive an hour from the terminal to get to our territory and then an hour back. So that long drive out and that long drive back, they were comfortable in them. We did add a couple Mercedes at the time, and we bought our first step vans at the time. So we started out with maybe 12 or 14 zip codes. And about a half a year later, we added more zip codes. We just bought more off of those two contractors that we originally bought from. We took more zip codes from them, added more step vans. because what we were adding territory wise was a few more of the towns, so we had a little bit more density. We weren't necessarily a lot closer to the terminal, but we were picking up more density. The step vans had more capacity. So we really started working our way out of the Mercedes and into more of the box, the P700s, 900s, and P1000s is what we have now. The Mercedes were very expensive to maintain as they got older. So every time you took a Mercedes in, it was a few $1,000s to fix it. So we really needed to transition out of those. We are still just shy of 3 years in the business, but we're now up to 16 trucks, 21 zip codes, and they're all step vans. Um, while they're not as comfortable on the way out on route and on the way back, we have more capacity in them. We're seeing an incredible increase in the ground network right now of the ICs, the larger packages. And so navigating your way around the truck to deliver big boxes got harder and harder and harder with the sprinters. So just in the last 2 months, we have gotten rid of all Mercedes, moved 100% into Ford and Freightliner P700s through P1000s. We have 16 of them. They're all no more than 3 years old, which is very expensive on the financing side. But initially, it's very cost effective on the maintenance side. Now, that being said, we are just beginning to see that transition over to, okay, our maintenance bills are ramping up a little bit, and yet the trucks are still financed. So, being completely transparent, we're venturing into a little bit of a new world here on how are we going to manage still having fleet debt with increasing maintenance costs as they get older. And there's going to come a point where we're going to have to look at transitioning out of some of those older trucks. And it's going to be a little bit of a new world for us to figure that out. We've had a lot of engine failures. I'm sure you've talked to a lot of contractors that this has been a really big deal. We've had many conversations with Ford about the engine failures. They are aware there's a problem. They are working their way through it. Right now, I have a truck out that for the very first time, it's out of warranty, but Ford is replacing the engine, not the labor, but the engine. So this is the first time we're getting relief from Ford on an engine replacement that was out of warranty as a recognition that this is a big deal. So I wish I could give you a great, here's how I manage my fleet, but I think Brent and I are just getting into that 100,000 miles on our trucks. And that's when things really start to go and you start to see a transition in your maintenance costs, maybe ratcheting up a little bit. But we're starting to get closer to paying vehicles off. So, ideally, we can still manage the maintenance costs to the point where they become paid off. And then you're great. But you got to get through that. And again, keep working with, in our instance, Ford Pro on these engines and keep pushing them. And their advice to us for anybody watching the podcast, and I'm not sure everybody knows this, is there is a link that I was sent to a website. And unfortunately, I can't provide it to you right here, right now. But if anybody asks, I can certainly shove it forward to you to check your VINs. And it will tell you if they're falling under this Goodwill program, if you've been having engine trouble, where they could potentially reimburse you, or they could be paying for the cost of the engine and not the labor. So that's just starting to turn on a little bit. And according to Ford Pro, really the key is make sure you take your trucks to a Ford dealership for their repair so that Ford knows how many of them are coming in, because that's the quickest path to a recall.
Yeah, Amy, I see a lot of contractors doing the same thing you're doing, where they have trucks financed, they're at 100,000, maintenance is starting to creep up. So I see a lot of turnover at like 150, 175,000 miles.
Yep.
That seems to be the most common if the contractors are going to try to rotate and keep newer trucks
Right.
in their fleet. So we will try to find that link and put it in the email
Mhm.
that we send out to all the contractors. That's a great tip.
Yep.
How did you get in contact? It sounds like you have a rep at Ford,
Hmm.
at the Ford warranty, that you are able to reach out to. You know their first name.
Yep.
It sounds like you have their direct line.
Yep.
How did you go about getting that?
So initially, the first couple of engines that we lost, and I know this sounds weird, I've not even been in business 3 years. All my trucks were purchased new, and I've replaced 6 engines so far. So the first couple were under warranty. So you work through, take them to a dealership, and they connect you with a Ford Pro rep. And the Ford Pro rep then is your interface to get the bill paid. If it's under warranty, we've also gotten reimbursed for the towing to get it to the dealership and the rental vehicle that we've had to get to run the business while it's down. Because depending on where you're located, we've gone back and forth between 2 Ford dealerships around about our territory based on their timing. So sometimes if a truck fails and you take it to the one that's closest, they could be 2 to 3 months out before they can get it back to you. But if I tow it further away, I can have it back in a month. So then I work with Ford Pro to say, okay, normally they would only reimburse tow to the closest dealership. However, then they would be on the hook for a longer rental. So I got them to agree to a more expensive tow to get a shorter rental, and they ended up ahead. So presenting them with all of those numbers, know your numbers, know your story, and literally putting it down in writing and saying, I can save you $1,000 in the end, Ford Pro, if you will agree to let me take it to the further away place and get it back sooner. And they happily did it. So you get assigned a Ford Pro rep. Then once I was assigned one, I had a truck come up that wasn't under warranty. And I reached back out to the same one that I had this good communication with. And she's the one that has worked with me on getting some assistance for some of my trucks. And then also on getting those tow bills covered and those rentals covered. And yeah, it's just once you find one that you can communicate well with, hold on to that person's number and that person's email. And then you can get a lot more with honey than vinegar. So that's just kind of the way it goes. So now pretty much, most of mine are not in warranty anymore. And I will be reaching out to that particular Ford Pro rep. And you'll get different ones if you're just doing the standard. Here's my truck. I need a Ford Pro rep. You'll get a different one every time. But again, just hold on to the one that you communicate well with, and then they'll work with you as your rep the next time you have an issue.
That's awesome. Amy, you made a couple of really interesting points that I just like to reiterate because I think that a lot of people might not know that if your truck is under warranty, that Ford covers that
Mhm.
tow. Did you call Ford roadside assistance to get the tow, or did you just pay for it yourself and then get them to
The
reimburse you?
first time we lost a truck, we called Ford Pro, or we called Ford Roadside, and they towed it. After that, we attempted to have a truck taken back to that same dealership for the next engine. At which point we discovered they were so backed up that it was just going to be a nightmare. So we went seeking the next closest Ford commercial because you can't just go to any Ford dealership. Got to be commercial.
Right.
So we went to the next closest, and then I reached out to Ford Pro and I said, now my husband, I have to give a little bit of credit to Brent. So he was automotive for 35 years in the Detroit area, working with all of the tier one suppliers. So he knew Ford Pro existed. We have very good friends that are very high up in engineering at Ford. They told us contact Ford Pro. Next door neighbors. You have to remember, I lived in Detroit. So Ford was everywhere. And so just the knowledge that Ford Pro exists is a good thing to understand. In this business, in P&D, by and large, you have 2 major vendors that you can use, Ford and Freightliner. Those are your choices. And so being Michigan people, being Detroit area people, it made all the sense in the world to dive right into Ford. And so, having personal connections with some of those people also gave us the confidence to reach out to them and understand that, we really could work with them. So I don't remember your first question.
I was asking about
Oh,
the
yeah.
tow, but there was one other thing that I wanted to ask you as well. When you had that truck that was out of warranty, was it out of warranty for mileage or engine hours?
Mileage,
Okay.
but they want to talk engine hours. So this is something that we've worked with both of the dealerships that we've been using to do the repairs is honing in on how often to change your oil and your filters and everything, engaging it more on engine hours than on miles. It's the easiest thing in the world to look at the dash and see the miles. So doing the calculation, how many engine hours is really equating to my miles, has driven us down to making sure you change oil and filters under 5,000 miles. So, but in our terms, that puts us in a lot of hours because of our stem. So the engine hours equates to about 5,000 miles on your odometer. So each contractor would really have to look at it and say, where's my easy button? Where the easy thing is the odometer. Okay, where do I match that with engine hours? Or you literally just have to go into all of your dashboard settings and look for your engine hours. So
And Amy, with that, how many engine hours are the Ford dealerships recommending you to change
you're
oil?
asking me something I don't remember. 8,000?
Mhm.
I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't
Okay.
remember. I didn't take notes on
So
that day.
that
My
you
manager knows.
that actually that leads into my next question.
Uh-huh.
So how are you relying fully on your manager for in terms of when you maintenance your trucks? And if a truck goes down, are you relying on him? Do you have an on-staff mechanic? How are you handling that?
He takes care of all of it. There is a lot that he can do himself, but we take it out for major repair. We take it out for oil changes because you can't do oil changes in the terminal. We do have a mechanic that comes in and does brakes and other basic things, but we have vendors in the area that we take the trucks to for more major things. Um, so I rely on him to keep track of all of that, but we have a record keeping system that I can pop into at any given time and check it. And I do spot checks to see, when is he doing, a full truck check. He keeps all of the records of everything that's been done to a vehicle. We use Ground Cloud. So I'll put a plug in for Ground Cloud. They have great maintenance recording part of their whole plan. And I don't do the big fancy Ground Cloud. There's some pro level of it. I don't do that. I use their basic system, but you can do a lot with just their basic system on keeping track of vehicle maintenance intervals. So, but my manager does all of it.
What a
I just spot check.
You hit the jackpot with this guy, it
Whoa,
sounds
You
like.
really
He's
did.
we
amazing.
did.
Yeah.
We really did. We 100% hit the jackpot with him.
So, in addition to Ground Cloud, what are some other tools that you use to manage remotely? What do you use to see what's going on?
So I do Ground Cloud, and we keep most of our records there. I use Paychecks for payroll. All of my drivers they all have Paychecks Flex accounts so that they can see their pay in real time. Um, I use basically just Sheets, Google Sheets, where we keep a lot of things like my roster and that I share with my manager, PTO, apparel sizes on everybody, when they've taken their time off, basic notes on our trucks that are just like major information, license plate number, when it's going to expire, when its last DOT or its last FAI was, all of those things that are just major bits of information. When my driver's DOT physicals are expiring, when their qual cert training is expiring, Things that you really have to keep track of, I just have shared Google Sheets that I use with my manager.
That makes a lot of sense. So, Amy, you have a lot of drivers that are driving for an extended period of time
Mhm,
before their first stop.
mhm,
It sounds like when you first took over, you probably had quite a few panel vans that were under 10,000 pounds
mhm,
DVW.
mhm.
How are you managing paying your driver? Are they all paid the same? Are people with the more rural routes paid hourly and more dense paid by a stop? How are you doing that?
So we pay everybody by the day. I no longer have any trucks under 10,000 pounds. And as a matter of fact, all except for one of their Mercedes was over. So I've only ever had one vehicle that was under 10,000. We really reserved it just for the manager for backup. It was never really used heavily on route because you do have to pay hourly with overtime if you're under 10,000 pounds. So I've always paid the drivers by the day. We pay a base daily rate plus a safety service and customer satisfaction bonus, which they get every single day as long as they're safe, they do good service, and our customers are satisfied. So you can't, in payroll legally, withhold from somebody's base daily rate for anything. You can withhold from their bonus. So if I have an incident where somebody has an accident, or which happens anymore very rarely, but it has. I mean, I am a victim of Schedule L. So let's just say it right here. I have put ruts in yards and I have taken out basketball goals. Anyways, that being said, not me personally, but when I interview these people on the phone before they even come on board, I explain pay is broken into two parts and I explain exactly why. I say to them, if you hit a mailbox, that mailbox is going to cost me at least $200 to replace. And not only is it going to cost me $200 to replace, it's going to become part of a penalty system from FedEx to me that I will be paying for the next 3 years. That's Schedule L. So, don't you think it would be fair if I was able to hold your $20 a day for a week to pay me back something for the fact that you hit a mailbox? And they always agree, yes, that is fair. I didn't realize how much that you would have to pay that. Well, yeah, if you're going to take out a mailbox, I got to buy the people a new mailbox. So, I can withhold that for a week if they have to be towed. And we go back and we look at the video and we see, okay, they had to be towed because of the circumstances of the roads where they were, or the driveway that they had to navigate, or something just crazy happened. I'm not holding somebody's safety service for that. But if I look at my vetter video and they just did something really dumb that they should never have done, then my manager will say to them, we're going to hold your safety service because that tow was $250. So you're going to pay for 100 of it by losing your $20 a day for 5 days. So that's how I structure pay. And then as far as bonuses, we're always offering up a little bit extra, $25, $50, something like that each day to drivers. If, let's say, one driver gets a flat tire en route and he's got to sit and wait for a long time, so he's way behind. Somebody else gets done early. We'll put a note out. My manager will put a note out to the drivers and say, hey, $50 in it for anybody that will go take, 30 stops off this guy that's sitting alongside the road waiting for the tow truck or for, roadside assistance. And people will look at their day and they'll say, hey, I could use an extra $50. So they go, they take 30 stops. They're all out in that nasty territory together. And this is what we really like to try to promote is you're all in this together. You're a team. So when you all pull out of the terminal in the morning, think in terms of being a team. On any given day when the note goes out, somebody needs help. Think about what you need if you're the one sending out the note, I need help. And take that into consideration when you ended up with a light day and got done early and somebody's sitting out there needing help. So, and then at peak season,
That seems like
obviously,
a
peak bonus. That's a foregone conclusion. That's a whole formula of how many extra stops are you doing beyond normal equates to a certain level of weekly added bonus just because peak is peak. It's crazy. People are out late and it's a long, hard day, but we try to compensate for that.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing all
Yeah,
that. That's really helpful information. I did want to go back to Schedule L a little
sure.
bit. I'm
My favorite
curious if
subject.
you've had any scenario. You're right. Well, maybe not specifically Schedule L,
Well, I
but
love to talk
accidents in
about it,
general.
Emily.
So I am I am curious if you have had any situations where you haven't had an accident that was deemed preventable and you felt that it was not, and have you had any success communicating with FedEx and getting that decision overturned?
Um, no, not really. But that being said, I would say there was one time that something went down as a complaint that was preventable. And you're never even going to believe this. One of our drivers hit some chickens leaving a driveway
Oh,
because
no.
the chickens ran under the truck. And so, therefore, it went down as preventable and it ended up on our Schedule L. And we did dispute it. And they did come back right away and say, animals running in front of the truck is never something that should have ended up on your Schedule L. So it was removed. But other than that, the things that have happened, they've happened. One of the things that we did run into a lot of trouble with, and maybe this is a really good point for some of your viewers to hear. We've had several incidences where those Mercedes Sprinter vans slipped out of park and rolled into someone's private property while we were delivering packages. We took the trucks into Mercedes right away and they could not duplicate it in the moment. However, months down the line, there was a recall for software that had specifically to do with rollaways. Now, we didn't get anywhere with getting that removed from Schedule L. And we didn't get anywhere, frankly, with getting Mercedes to respond to us to help compensate for the fact that we caused damage and it is still hurting us because it's part of our Schedule L calculation. Um, but it's been in situations where it's either the software initially was a failure, but we've also had where the actual shifter, where the park button is on the end of the shifter, failed. And that caused a rollaway. So thank the Lord, nobody was in the way of the truck and it didn't hurt any people. But yeah, we do have 2 incidents currently on our Schedule L that will hang out there for 3 years that were Mercedes rollaways. Yep. And we've had many more rollaways that just didn't result in damage.
Wow.
Big part of
Wow,
why we
that's
got rid of them.
crazy.
Yep.
Did that
Don't forget
cause
your ride,
you
but it's
to
nice this neat part. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, Jake.
yeah, no kidding. No, no, no. That's a huge deal. So did that cause you guys to create any procedures like, okay, when we stop, particularly with the Mercedes trucks, we have to put the parking brake on or add anything to your driver handbook?
So one of the things that we coached the drivers on was when you stop, don't stop so close to the private property. That's number one. Make sure you don't stop so close to private property. Because it gives you time to react if something happens, that it starts to roll. Um, Good luck getting drivers to put the parking brake on every time to remember to do that. You know, that's
Yeah,
a coaching and a training thing. You can tell them until you're blue in the face. Their goal is still to deliver the package and get on to the next thing as fast as absolutely humanly possible. And
sure.
so we did not have a lot of success with training them to use the parking brake. Or I think actually, if I remember correctly, there's something to be said for if you turn the vehicle off, it's automatically in park, or you open the driver's door, it's automatically in park. But that's not where they deliver from. They don't deliver from the driver's door. So,
Yep.
you know, that doesn't really help you. But yeah, no, we didn't really. And not long after this most recent incident happened, all the Mercedes were gone. So it's just like one of those things where out of sight, out of mind now. I will
Yeah.
never go backwards
Okay.
on that. So, and I don't mean to bash Mercedes. People love them, but they did have they are a difficult vehicle for a very rural territory.
That
So,
makes sense. Never roll
Wow.
back,
mhm.
pun
Yeah,
intended.
never roll back.
That's that's so crazy. I actually just recently saw a video of that happening
Yes,
to a delivery
I
driver
saw the video too.
with the
Mhm. And
yep.
that is
Oh,
exactly
scary.
what we
Can't imagine.
experienced. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, we are approaching our time,
Okay.
so I feel like it might be time to get into our 3 to Thrive. What do you say, Jake? Do you have more questions, or are you ready to wrap
This
it
has
up?
been awesome. Amy, do you have anything
Yes.
that you are looking to add?
Okay, so let's talk about people we want to have a good, close, working, communicative relationship with.
Great.
Okay. I want to hammer this one home. So I already said terminal manager, your belt line supervisor, your Ford Pro, your Freightliner, whoever your person is, whatever trucks you use, find your people that can advocate for you with the manufacturer. Um, we talked about Schedule L. I'm on a first name basis with the lady that works for Marsh that actually talks you through if you have questions about your Schedule L. First Advantage. Everybody dogs First Advantage. Don't. It's not worth it. You're not buying yourself anything by getting upset. You get people on the phone, you have a nice communication with them, they will call you back. Have a great relationship between your BCs and your terminal. You know, that's not me, but if they have a great relationship with other BCs, then their day is easier. Your owner to your drivers, your BC to your drivers, having all that communication. But here's the one we didn't get to talk about. This one's really important. Gallagher Bassett. This is the third party vendor that if somebody calls in and places a legitimate ARC complaint about damage to their property or their package or whatever, FedEx turns it over to a company called Gallagher Bassett. And Gallagher Bassett is the third party vendor that reviews the claim and they decide whether FedEx is going to pay on the claim. So, something that I've learned because I talk to these people, and you get a different one every time. I don't have a favorite Gallagher Bassett person like I do Ford Pro. With every case, you'll get a different one. Um, Talking through the logistics of the case, I have learned that Gallagher Bassett representatives have the right to approve a claim up to $2,500 without taking it to upper management. So, in conversation with some Gallagher Bassett representatives, the words have actually come out. Oh, don't worry about it. It's only going to be about a $200 claim that I'm going to approve. At which point, I've had the opportunity to explain to them it might be $200 today, but it's a percentage of my revenue for 3 years as a penalty. So, I want everybody to understand at Gallagher Bassett that Schedule L exists because they do not know that. Multiple Gallagher Bassett reps that I've been on the phone with have zero knowledge of Schedule L and what their easy button approval of a claim means to a contractor. I've had some claims that have come through literally the receipt I got Gallagher Bassett to send me for what they approved was from a business that did not exist. But they did not have to take it to their management to review it because it was under $2,500. But I paid to reseed somebody's yard and power wash their driveway off of somebody's homemade receipt. You can't find the vendor that they used and turned in the bill to Gallagher Bassett anywhere on the internet. So I think there is a breakdown in communication between FedEx and Gallagher Bassett and the contractors when it comes to understanding. I know they probably get hundreds of claims a day across this entire network. And sometimes they can look at it and say, oh my gosh, Could we just get this customer to go away for a couple $100? It's the easiest thing to do. Yes, boom, hit that button. It means a lot more to me. It's my contractability. It's my percentage of revenue loss. And nobody at FedEx told them that this thing called Schedule L exists. And so I try to educate Gallagher Bassett when we're on the phone. Half of them probably can't wait to get off of the phone with me, but but I have come across some great ones too. Some great people from Gallagher that have said, "Oh yeah, no, I get it. I see your perspective." And they have declined a lot of claims. We get a lot of bogus claims. We really do. And so you have to pay attention and do your due diligence when you're pulling your vetter video, and make sure you get it turned in. Make sure your vetters are working. They can be your best friend, because out in our territory, we get a lot of people that want to claim, you ruined their gate and you've got it on video that you didn't even pull in their driveway. You delivered from the road. So it happens all the time. Anything else? Wow.
Jake, this is why when I was talking to Amy, I said we need to have this one on the podcast. That level of organization and detail is remarkable. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
The
That was great.
detail really is remarkable. I think we probably need to have you on for a second one.
Oh, yeah. We'll have to come up with something else to talk about.
I don't think that'll be a
We'll talk
problem.
about my peak season fleet planning, right, Emily?
Yeah. There we go. That's right.
That's
That's
right.
right. I love it. We'll check back in January and see how it all went.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Awesome. Okay.
So I don't know how much you've listened to the podcast, Amy, but this is a segment called the FedEx 3 to Thrive.
Okay.
The last 3 questions that we ask every contractor. And the first question of the FedEx 3 to Thrive is, what was one of the most worthwhile investments that you have made into your FedEx business?
My manager. Very simple.
I kind of thought that might
Take
be
care
your
of your
answer.
manager, and your manager will take care of your business.
That's awesome. And question number 2, oftentimes failure in business can be our greatest teacher. Do you have a favorite failure and what did you learn?
Yeah, I do. So our original CSA, which I talked about, was 12 or so zip codes. Then we expanded up to maybe 18 or 19, somewhere around there, by purchasing more. Then about a year and a half ago, some zip codes around our territory became available just to assume from FedEx. And it made sense for our map. It made sense for our business. The one thing we didn't do at the time, and we had been in the business of just about a year at the time when this happened, we ran it for a little bit through peak as contingency, which was great because you get all that. Not only are you getting contingency pay, you're getting it at peak. So it's like doubly good. And then it became permanently available to us. And we went ahead and we absorbed those zip codes, which was good. We didn't have to buy the territory. We just got it. So we increased our fleet. What we did not do going into running it was do enough of our due diligence on the cost to run it and insist on doing a renegotiation at the time. So for a number of months, we were running it where, incrementally speaking, that territory was losing money. So if you took the base formula of your contract and added that territory and those stops, the cost was higher than what the revenue increase was. So when we went through negotiation, and this is the part where, okay, I run the FedEx side for our company. My husband is the deep, deep numbers person. And so he really did a deep dive into our numbers, our costs, our revenue. And when we went into negotiation with this new territory being included now in a new contract, we really were able to lay out for them the finances behind running this territory. And we got a very good contract. We're very happy with it. It can always be better. I'm not going to sit here on live podcast and say that I'm totally satisfied with my contract. I know that there are still areas to improve, but what I learned from it is we're currently discussing the possibility of assuming a little more territory, a couple more zip codes. But we've learned that what you can do if you're going to grow in your same terminal by expanding your current CSA is you can do what's called a CSA definition change. And so you work that through with your terminal manager, and they basically mock up, if you go ahead and take over this additional area, what will your new contract look like? Because taking on new territory can affect a couple of things. It can affect density, it can affect STEM. And so it can change those numbers. And if you don't look at what those end numbers are going to be for your whole CSA before you agree to make that addition, you could get burned in your next negotiation. So we're actually, exploring redefinition right now to see, does it make sense for us to grow a little bit more based on what FedEx is going to end up choosing to offer us contractually when we go through renegotiation? And we've done a much better job of really diving into the numbers of what it costs to run our territory, being 3 years in. And so then we can make a much more informed decision on expansion and everybody wants to expand. You're either going to grow bigger in your own terminal or you're going to pick up a CSA someplace else. Knowing your numbers is really key. And I just think maybe the first 1 or 2 times that we grew, we didn't know them well enough until we really went through renegotiation. And then you have to sell it to FedEx. You have to sell the reality to them. So that's what I've learned. Know your numbers.
I love it.
Yeah.
And Amy, our final question of the FedEx 3 to Thrive is, what is your favorite part about being a FedEx contractor?
Flexibility. I can do my job from anywhere, any day, anytime. So knowing that I have a Rockstar BC, I can be anywhere, anytime, and I can do what I need to do as long as I have Wi-Fi and a cell phone. So that's my favorite part. And the people. I got to say, it's not one favorite part. I do love the people. We love going down to the terminal and chatting with the drivers, hearing about their lives, hearing about their kids, what they've got going on. It's always a lot of fun. But you don't even have the ability to do that if you don't have complete flexibility.
So true.
Yeah.
Amy, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Emily.
This has been great.
Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amy. This has been super awesome and super valuable.
You guys reach out anytime.
Routing for Success is brought to you by AP Equipment Financing. In today's competitive market, it is essential to acquire the right trucks at a fair price and finance them in a way that makes sense for your business. Leveraging their extensive network of truck and van suppliers, the experts at AP Equipment Financing will help you locate the best deals on step vans, cutaways, panel vans, and more. Deliver them straight to your facility and finance them with low monthly installment options. Click the link in the description or visit apfinancing.com for more information. Routing for Success is an independent production of AP Equipment Financing and is in no way affiliated with or endorsed by FedEx Corporation, FedEx Ground, Amazon, or any other logistics company discussed herein. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Routing for Success.
The bank is like 1 for 3.